Okay, please welcome to the stage Andrew Currie, architect, and he's an architect, and his company is called Out to Design.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, as Thomas mentioned, I'm an architect. We have an architecture and interior design firm here in Ho Chi Minh. And I guess this is my current best or favorite quote on design. Design is making life better and bringing joy. And I guess to us, that's quite a big responsibility as an architect as well, given that we're building things that stay there for quite a long time. And in Vietnam, it's a very unregulated market. So as the architects, we often, or as the designers, we carry a large burden of responsibility. So what I want to do tonight is really just run through some statistics and research and data that's come out of 12 years of practicing in Vietnam, and to share that hopefully to a forum of designers, things that we've been researching over the last couple of years after collecting this data on design, and I've rarely seen shared. So it's a little bit data oriented. I'm not going to talk about our projects, although you'll see a selection of projects as we walk through the presentation. But basically, it's an insight into the dynamics of design, or the data around designing in Vietnam. So 12 years of practice in Vietnam. Through that 12 years, we've had an average of about 11 to 15 staff, and currently have 2 foreign staff being the founders. If we look at our operating costs for last year, 52% of our costs are staff costs. That's basically salary and benefits to staff. And then the rest, of course, broken up between rent and other expenses of business. We've completed around 167, 168 projects in Vietnam. We have an average client satisfaction rating that we run throughout the year of 80%, and 75% of our projects come from repeat clients in the year 2014-15. You can see down this slide, sorry, the number of projects per year. So you see that it fluctuates, or has fluctuated quite a lot in Vietnam, and the number of projects by sector there. Office design is by far our biggest sector. Residential and education and hospitality being our other main areas. So if you look at our costs, for us, the single biggest responsibility that we believe we have is to our staff, to both develop them and to reward them fairly. And I think one of the things we find in Vietnam for designers and thinking responsibly is that quite often it's hard to be treated responsibly as a designer and to make a decent business of it. And I guess this is why I wanted to share some of this data, because after 12 years, it's just interesting to see how we've had to change and adapt to maintain a viable business here. So just looking at our staff is a challenging area in Vietnam. Our oldest staff members are in their 40s, so that's me and the other partner. Most of our staff are young. Average age of staff in our office is 26. Most of them come to us with only 2 or 3 years experience. And now, probably over 70% of our staff have some form of education overseas. So that has also changed completely the dynamics of our office now. When we started the office 12 years ago, we probably had 3 times the number of foreigners that we did local staff. Now we've changed that completely, and it's only the 2 partners that are foreign. Everybody else is Vietnamese, and we invest heavily in developing those staff. Yeah. Putting a value on the quality of design is very difficult. To put a tangible value on that. We don't get taught at university generally how to make a business of design, but we do seem somehow to get taught that money and creativity shouldn't go together. So generally what we find are creatives have poorly developed financial skills, and for me personally, one of the hardest things to learn as an owner of a business is actually how to deal with clients and projects financially, and make sure that we're able to take responsibility for developing our staff and paying them well. We have a lot of people in the market here who expect or would like designers to give them design for free. So that's a little bit of a matrix on our client base there. So around 2% of our repeat clients expect something for free, and our repeat clients make up 50 to 70% of our business. 5% of international prospects expect something for free, 25% of regional Southeast Asia, 80% of local clients would like something for free, and the most extreme, I guess, is 90% of project managers want us to do everything want us to do a lot of stuff for free. So I don't see that as very responsible at all. In terms of responsibility, I guess some simple principles that we like to adhere to and share again. As designers, I think we should demand to be treated responsibly. Too many designers are, I guess, mistreated and don't think it's their right to be treated responsibly. Always charge good money for your design. Charge as much as you reasonably or responsibly can, and then act responsibly. You know, be responsible and do a really good job for your clients. To do a really good job, make sure you choose the right clients. You need good clients to do good work. And then, of course, make sure you've got great staff, and that means investing in them and investing in their continuous development. Be focused and know what you want to do. Be flexible to change when you want to or need to. Be confident in your ability, and don't work with clients or people or staff who are not a good fit culturally with your organization. Then finally, monitor and measure what you do against the metrics that matter to you. Just a few, I guess, more elements of what we do. So creating a culture of design. I do believe that as designers we have to create the right culture, and we do that through leadership, systems, procedures, training and education for staff and clients, evaluation and evolution. The graph there, the squiggly graph there, is a timeline of a quiz that we haven't done it for a while in the office, but we used to quiz everybody weekly on our culture, our values, our vision. So you can see in the beginning, very few people were able to name all of our values, and then through time, most people improved, and some people went up and down. But basically, we've spent a lot of time embodying a culture of responsibility in our staff through all sorts of protocols. The graph on the bottom there shows in 2014 what we spent our time doing. Projects is obviously the biggest, admin the second biggest, but QCI, which you see there as a third, almost the same as amount of time as leave, is actually our continuous quality and improvement program, you like, basically training staff. just in terms of understanding, again, something that we've only started to look at is what is the cost of good design. So last year we ran some analysis on what it actually costs, the difference between our award-winning projects and other projects of a similar size and nature that weren't as detailed. So you can see that the two projects there are basically the same size. The second office, which won the office project, which won the Best Office in Vietnam award, took a hell of a lot more time, energy, and effort to design well. So we can extrapolate for that the cost of great design is greater, and therefore you should be charging more for it, or we should be, and people should understand that. So for architects and other designers who understand this process, that project overall took 106% more time and therefore more money. The briefing phase was 158% more, concept design 80% more, design development 75%, and documentation 110% more. So all cost to us that needs to be recovered from fees. So just to close then, the opportunities in Vietnam are great. I mean, it's an incredibly diverse market that can accept design firms that range right across the board, from expert to experience to volume. But at the end of the day, it's us as designers who are 100% responsible for choosing where we fit into that diverse matrix, how we act and what we do, and what we design. So thank you for your time and for listening. I have a note there that says save your questions for the panel discussion to follow. Since I'm last, I guess this is now the panel discussion. So feel free to ask any questions if you've got some. Thank you.
Andrew.
Yes.
Why do you believe it is that lawyers are able to charge and recharge so much money for their intellectual property and the work they've done in the past, but for some reason clients aren't able to transfer that same idea to design?
Okay, it's a good question. Obviously, from a professional services level, we would, as architects, consider ourselves on the same basis as lawyers or doctors. I think it comes down to risk and necessity. Not many people think they can be lawyers, and when they get into trouble, they require lawyers to get them out of that. Not many people go to the doctor and say, well, I'm not sure if you're very good, so can you just do my left leg for free? And if it works out, I'll pay you for the right leg. But architects and designers, everyone seems to think they can do a pretty good job themselves. And the best way to find out whether they like the designer is to get them to do something for free. And then, if they do, they'll pay them. If they don't, then they won't. So unfortunately, I think it comes down to necessity and risk.
Hi, I have questions related to managing a creative team. So my most question is, number one question actually, so how would you keep your team motivated while being creative but meeting the deadline? Because what I'm finding is that's sort of a very slippery slope of keeping them really engaged still and don't feel frustrated with the milestone that they need to meet?
Okay. Also a good question. I should ask my staff who are all here. They're all here instead of being at work, so that's, no. I think comes down to obviously having good staff, having good clients, so you're working on good projects, so you're motivated to have a good project, and then making everybody part of the process. I mean, we have a small firm where everybody works very closely in a team. We don't divide us up between sort of production and design and those sorts of things. Everyone's involved. And I mentioned there about being flexible. We're also flexible enough to engage with our staff to actually understand what kind of projects we collectively want to do and win, and we go out and find those projects. In fact, for the second time in probably 5 years, just this month, we've reinstigated a curfew in the office, which means everybody is supposed to leave the office by 6:30, because we have a problem with people staying late and working rather than leaving early and not working. So I guess it's a good problem to have, but we have good staff, so get good staff and it all works. But don't take my staff.
Right. Speaking of staff, I noticed your staff is fairly junior in general, like the majority of staff, and I was curious as to why that was. Was it a result of your needs as a business or market conditions?
It's very much market condition driven. It's changed, as I say, in 12 years it's changed dramatically. 12 years ago we really found we couldn't employ anyone that had more than about 2 years experience, because if they had 2 years experience, 2 years or more experience, the experience generally they had was so incompatible with the way we worked that we just couldn't deal with that. So what we find is that we're trying to find people with the right attitude and that fit with us culturally. And then, I think we did a calculation last year that said 30% of our time was spent then training and developing staff. So that's what we do. That's how we address it. So it's just easier to work with younger people that haven't yet been tainted by other firms. But we have 2 new staff here tonight, so they're about to go through the training program. But for them, as we said to them, our expectation for them for the first 6 months is just to understand how we work and participate in the process and learn our culture, and then they can start doing work.
Thank you.
Dana?
Suggest it when you talk with clients.
Say that again.
What is the appetite or trends in requests for green designs, or do you try to kind of suggest different ways that the designs can be green?
Yeah, it's interesting because I struggled whether or not to put talking about responsibility, whether or not to put a slide on sustainability in there and our efforts in that regard. Same with charity and social enterprise. What I think we've seen is 5 years ago there was a huge interest and everybody was talking about it. Now that has really waned, where the majority of the market doesn't really have much interest in going very far into sustainable design and certification. We, I guess by design, I was going to say, incorporate most of our projects are very, I guess, advanced by local standards in terms of using sustainable materials, those sorts of things. Most times we just incorporate that in anyway. Our clients understand that that's our approach, and I think we have a very trusting, you can see from the client satisfaction and repeat clients, we have very trusting clients who basically, or most cases, just say, look, if we can afford it, do whatever we can do. But once it gets to a certain level, then, a lot of people will keep saying, it's the bane of my life, people keep saying green design doesn't cost any more. That's completely wrong in Vietnam. It does cost more because you have to have a basic quality standard that isn't the norm in the market. So, you do have to get your clients to a certain quality level, and then again, further certification. So it's waned in Vietnam for sure, but I mean, at the moment we're working on a net zero energy project in Phu Quoc, and we're about to start our biggest certified project for load and liter. So we're still pushing it.
Try this. I'll shout out. I'll repeat it. You're a designer. You've got to give your client what they want. You've got to give the client what they want. And yet, you're designing something. You have an idea what you think is the right thing to do. Are there certain areas where you think the client consistently gets it wrong, where they should do this from a design perspective, from any kind of perspective, and they choose to do something else?
Okay, not on our projects, because I guess one of the other differences in our approach is that we have a very, very robust briefing process, which is led by us, and so yeah, we don't come across many clients who don't give us a very high degree of freedom or anyway. Here, yeah, what the clients do wrong, engage project managers at the beginning of a project who then take a different approach, get their budgets wrong. So a lot of clients in Vietnam are not experienced. And because of the market being so diverse, you can build an office for $150 a square meter or $1,000 a square meter, and quite often they just don't, they don't take advice early as to where they should be, so they have unrealistic expectations, but mainly around cost and time. Not, they all have similar expectations around what they want from a design, but then how they understand how that's going to cost or how long it will take is the biggest, I guess, misconceptions there.
One follow-up question, if I can. I was really surprised to see the hours on that graph and how much of that was spent on documentation versus design and concept. Do you see in your business documentation as a competitive advantage or a commodity? And is that a problem for you, that when you look at all the creative aspect of what would presumably be your value add, that so much of your hours are in the documentation and what looks like the more mundane aspects of the business?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it surprises me when I look at these figures. The two things that are really out of whack, I would say, in Vietnam is documentation and construction administration. Normally you'd be doing less. Here you do 3 times more. And it's not a pleasant phase of a design project normally.
And is that Vietnam specific, or is that just the way the business is?
It's a bit of both. Yeah, because you'll be well aware of the projects we do and the care we take. And so what we also believe is that we have to know how to build it because most of the builders may not. So we need to support the builders and the manufacturers. And the best way to do that is to draw it all. And we do everything in-house. We don't outsource anything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the presentations for DX-5. Please feel free to stick around and network with each other. I'll turn on some music, and eventually a DJ will take over as well. Really appreciated your attendance, and maybe in 6 months or a year, we'll see you at the next event. Thank you very much.